Whether on Saturday. Okay. Like I see you, like.
The name is Dr. Bello from Paradise University. And the title of my presentation is When Insecure Informal Sector, Forced Migration and Further Market in the Cities of Southwest Nigeria. This talk will be different minutes. I'll be looking at the context and main arguments, the study objectives, previous scholarly perspectives. Then I'll look at the relevant, the connection between the theory, push-pull theory and the urban framework, and discuss the findings and the recommendation and conclusion. So the idea of coming up with this argument is born from the context that urbanizing African communities are increasingly struggling with large and expanding population, which is of course shrinking possibilities of getting employed in the formal sector and expanding the informal sector, by which the informal sector is being challenged to accommodate more of humans and more of the labor force who are supposed to be employable. So by and large, we are beginning to see several insecurities born out of the over-congestion and the expansion of the informal sector. And we are beginning to see worsening in the situations. So on one hand is the expansion that is born out of internal situations of congestion, internal situations of population and enlarging demand for jobs and opportunities. While in the real sense of it, these opportunities are limited, forcing people to go into the informal sector to seek income and to seek livelihood in the informal sector. And that is what the concentration has always been on the internal induced factors that is causing the expansion in the informal sector and bringing about insecurity. There are some other external factors that are causing expansion in the informal sector, which is the forceful displacement of people that is bringing in people to the urban areas. This is like a kind of shift from the traditions that usually when people are being forced to leave their home countries or home communities, they will find themselves in IDP camps. We are beginning to see several dispatchment of people into informal communities because they are beginning to have some kind of calculative activities, a calculative mindset on how to look for and fend for themselves beyond what is available in refugee or IDP camps. So the objective of the work is to first of all, investigate the factors that are connecting post-migration to the expansion of squalor market in Lagos and Ibadan. Then studying how Lagos and Ibadan traders experience insecurity in squalor market and examining the policy implications of this continuous influx of post-migrants and expanding squalor market. This is to bring about the understanding that there's a squalor market, market particularly a very example of the informal sector that we usually find this influx of people. So what is bringing in the expansion of market and the creation of squalor market and the expansion of this squalor market in the urban informal sector is what we tend to look at. So, just like, so these are the previous perspectives of the scholarship. What is urban informal sector? That is the sector that is usually unregulated by the government, that is usually being overlooked when it comes to issue of registration, issue of following the rules, and where they usually free exit and entry for individuals as much as they have little capital to start. So where most likely incomes are usually where there is assurance of getting income, where even the formal sector is like a support system for the formal sector. So the forced migration is a situation where there is a large influx of people living as a result of hardship or several unpleasant conditions and seeking a safer communities to dwell or to kind of gain a livelihood. So the idea of the idea of concept of force, however, is still contentious, and it is contentious because at the point where they are leaving their home communities, they may be termed as being forced, but by the time they are getting to the places where they think they feel safe or they can seek livelihood, the idea of forcefulness becomes questionable, because that time they are beginning to make some calculative and rational decisions on how they can get to a place where their subsistence can be guaranteed. So squalor markets are the informal trading areas and slums or underserved urban spaces that operate substandard, unhealthy, or whatever you think of unhealthiness or irregularities where the conditions are unsafe for human living. So these are one of the theories that we'll be using is the push-pull theory, which looks at the connection between what is responsible for the migration and what are the migrants using as a means, what is motivating them, or what are the extension of the situation after the migration. So there's a link between these two, which this work will try to look at the discussion of the findings. So the human security framework establishes different dimensions of insecurity that the migrants and other members of the host community, particularly in this market, are exposed to. So the research is qualitative, looking at the case studies of specific markets in Lagos and Ibadan, which we find to be the most urbanizing urban areas in the southwest Nigeria, particularly Bodija market and Akinyele market in Ibadan are picked, purposefully picked actually, because we find the instances of high level of migrants that are moving from the northern part of the country to the south. So Mile 12 and Mushi market are also picked. This does not mean that these markets are the only places where we have this influx of migrants, but we are picking them because, first of all, based on the convenience of the researcher, and secondly, because we have good representation of these activities in these places. So the primary data are collected from observation of growing squalor markets in this study, Lagos and Ibadan market, and in-depth interview with traders and the host market and migrant traders. Secondary sources are from the books, periodicals, and the internet. So all information are content analyzed using conceptual and relational analysis of major concepts. So what are the findings? We found out that there are no, this is not. There's a slide before this. Okay. we find out that looking at it from the push and pull perspective, we find out that there's a push factor to that connects forced migration to the expansion of swallow markets in Lagos and Ibadan. From the push perspective, we realize that there's violence and insecurity in the northern region. That cannot be overemphasized. We already know that these are the instances, there are several instances of insecurity in this region. And when we talk about the northern region, we talk about the core north, the northeast, the northwest, and the north central. All these regions have been and still at present experiencing huge situations of unrest and violence. So desertification and climate stress is also evident from what we observe from these migrants. Some of them have moved. Some of them are previous farmers who could not continue with their farming, but who have to resort to trading in the southern part of the country. So collapsing rural economies, this is after the aftermath of the violence that they are experiencing, which is making them migrate to look for alternative occupation. And one of the most close alternative occupation is trading in food items, perishable items, and so on and so forth. So the pull factors are what they meet and what is the exact situation in this market that they have to navigate their way through, and the factors that is enabling for them to establish these squalors. So the migration to poorly regulated urban markets. The market is already poorly regulated. So it gave these forced migrants the capacity to establish their own makeshift shops and some containers and so on around the market. So it is like several attachments to already existing markets. So some of them did not start as follows. But by the time you see some of the attachments to this market, you begin to even try to understand if they are really established markets. When my 12 is an established market, Mushi market is also an established market. But by the time you have this attachment of these forced migrants who cannot even afford to rent the real shops, so you find them attaching their small shops to this market now they are beginning to expand and then changing the entire structure of the market. So the creation of squalors using makeshift and containers and attaching them as an extension to the market. So beginning to find issues of trying to seek safety, trying to seek security, and this space-making issue of trying to get some space for themselves that they can call their own. And their economic survival is based on this market because they try to bring down the cost of what they sell. Their things are usually relatively cheaper than what you can find in the normal shop. So they try to make space for themselves from the social and economic perspectives. So the dimensions of human security in the urban market, one of these dimensions is the economic insecurity from the side of the migrant. We find that they have income instability. They experience different kinds of market instabilities. Whenever the market is closed down, some of their goods are perishable. They are not able to sell them. There are several issues making them have inconsistency with their income. And don't forget that they do not have the normal store that others that store owners, that they have better places to keep better storages for their goods. They do not. They have poor storage facilities, which of course eventually affects their income. So increased cases of
I think you should be rounding up now.
Yeah, I'm almost done. Increased cases of theft that was also affecting their economic status. Then we have the personal insecurity. The migrants are experiencing frequent stress of demolition and evictions from authorities, extortion from corrupt government officials, and environmental health insecurity from both for the migrants and also for the other members of the market, other traders in the markets serving both residential and commercial purposes. These migrants are also using their stalls and makeshift as residents. So invariably, they overuse the facilities in the market. It causes worsening sewage and waste management, and increased pollution in the market, and poor ventilation. So we have political insecurity, migrant exclusion from market decision making, and then occasional market tensions and crises are seen. Particularly, we have the cases in Chacha that we moved to a PLA, and we see some pockets of crises that we experience. So policy implications, these are the policy implications. I do not have much time to go through them. We have issues that are bothering about the need to look at the need to address issues of market facilities. We need to look at the issues of the migrants and to better their status and make them be more representation of the market space and so on and so forth. So, so these are the conclusions. Don't have much time, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. How do I address you, Mrs. Bello, Dr. Bello, Professor Bello?
Dr. Bello.
Okay, Dr. Bello, thank you so much. So, does anyone in the room have any questions for her? Anyone? Okay.
Oh, yes, someone has a question, and there's also a question from someone online.
Oh, okay. The person physical there can ask first.
All right.
Before we go online.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Bello, for this very insightful presentation. And my question basically is on the influx of people to these locations. If you try to get the segregated data, those people, they all traders, or are they male people who just have data that speaks to the various people that get to this community from this planet?
Okay, you need demographics.
Yes.
Because my research is not, the scope of my work is not looking at the demographic aspects of these the core aftermath of how it affects the market structure and several other security problems and again. So I will not be able to say that to get demographic capturing because I did not disagree the entire population, which of course not going to be realistic as far as the nature of my research design is concerned. But on the larger scale, I would say that from those that I was able to interview, I would see that they are more of male. Some of them are able to secure the space by bringing in their families, but that is not of the majority. The majority usually come as individuals, bringing in their friends and acquaintances and their families, but most of them are male minorities.
Okay, thank you. Let me read. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead and ask a question.
Not so much of it's not even a question at all. But when we're talking about force and how problematic it is to use force as a concept to define the entry of people coming from this part of the country to this. I remember something that within when you are conceptualizing entrance or agency, it's first to do as sort of agency. There's something called first choice, that I think will capture what you are trying to say. A situation whereby there is no define, you can't define their entry and their present position under one concept. So there's like an overlapping of experience, start from force, then becomes choice, but it's still called force choice because there is still an element of force, even if they are choosing to stay with that. So I think look at that concept and use this for instance.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. The question online says, what is the 2025 current population of Lagos Island? And then more broadly, the greater Lagos metropolitan area that includes the island plus Apapa and the mainland.
That's the scope of my research. Probably to another paper.
Yes, actually, I've looked when I read through, I found out that it's not related to that stuff. So my own question is that I find it hard to believe that um you are concentrated on migrants, but then are there evidence that shows that most of the migrants are those who trade in the squalor market? And how were you able to determine who the migrants are? What is their population? That's when you were talking, I was trying to find out market and know who is a migrant and who is not a migrant, or who was forced to migrate and move to that area to go and join the forced migration and go and join the market. So another issue I'm having with it is Bodija a squalor market? Because I see it as an organized
Okay.
Bodija. Is it a squalor market? Because to me, it's a very organized market. It's just that some people now stay on the road to sell. So I don't know how squalorish it is.
Do you want me
Okay,
to?
so then another thing I think you can add to your work is does the push or pull factors influence the growth or an expansion of squalor markets? Did you do any regression here? So if you didn't do any regression, how were you able to um, connect the forced migration and the squalor market? So I think that's all for me. If
Okay.
you
All right.
if you have
Okay, thank you. Just like I was trying to, first of all, the need for us to understand what is quality about this market. It is not that the entire market
okay,
is a swallow market, but what we're able to identify is that there are attachments that are being made to this market that is changing the form and structure of the market. So much that by the time, for example, some governments are beginning to say they want to clean up some of this market because of the understanding that there are some attachments by some categories of marketers who, for one reason or the other, are not making use of the actual buildings or the shops that are being constructed. So that is what makes this market become that way. So we identify those parts of the market where we have makeshift, where we have containers, where we have some of these people who are not the usual uh, who are not built from the ethnic groups of the usual marketers that we see. So we walk up to them, we ask them questions. Since when have you been to this market? They tell us just we got here 2 years ago. Why were you here? Where were you before? And these are it was easy for us to identify them because of the nature of where they display their goods. And then we are also identified that they also live in this market. Not only are they having shops there, they also live there. So what is responsible for them making this market be serving two purposes, both commercial and residential? So this puts them in that state of vulnerability that was very easy for us to identify. So yes, for profiling. So I don't know if I've captured all the questions. Push, pull, growing, swallow. I didn't get
yeah.
that part. The connection between the push, pull. I
No, I
didn't.
was just talking about regression. If you did regression to know if the factors influenced the squalor market, or there are other things that influence people to move to that area and then increase the population of those in the squalor market.
Well, what informed our position was what we asked them and several other connecting issues. So it is not a kind of response from one person. It is a response that we were able to capture from several of these people who were able to discuss these factors that cut across. For example, somebody is telling me that I left because of crisis. I left because of the violence, and I'm going to go back to pick my children and my wife. They are not here, but as soon as I'm able to settle down and this place is safe enough, I'm going to bring my children and my family to come and stay with me. So on that note, we were able to understand what was bringing this particular person and what is likely to bring the aftermath and the other decisions that this migrant would take. And that cuts across all of these interviewed persons.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bello. Thank you so much. So, the next speaker is Olubukola Olunloyo. Is she here? Her topic is Orile Okuta Community and Sustainable Development.
All right. Okay. I think there are two other comments, but I think they are part of the presentation of Dr. Temitope. So Dr. Bello. So Chair, you can just check.
I think we should just. Yes, I've checked it. So let's just go with Olubukola first, then we can go back later because the time is really against us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Olubukola Olunloyo. Small lecturer. I use my noisemaker voice or lecturer voice. I'm a principal lecturer at Yaba College of Technology and a coordinator at Internal Quality Assurance Unit. I'm here to present my paper titled Orile Okuta Community and Sustainable Development. Thank you. That's the abstract. I'd like to introduce it. I'd like to introduce the discussion based on the keywords and the words we are conversant with, but are not sure of the meaning. We just have the nearest, we have an idea. First, the study area Orile Okuta is in Ikorodu. It's a place in Lagos, Ikorodu side, and it's a sprawling urbanization. It's a type of slum, but this type of slum is different from the one we have in Makoko because the people staying here came from the inner side of Lagos to move to this fringe of Lagos because the land there is cheaper and the housing is affordable. It's more affordable, it's low cost, and they are able to build there. They are tired of paying high rents in smaller cubicles, and they just want to own their own house. So that is why they are staying there, regardless of all infrastructure that a normal human being is supposed to have. Even though there is no road, even though there is no electricity supply, no water, they want to stay there. So that is the peculiarity of Orile Okuta, and that is why I'm intervening as a town planner, because now they want to have a better existence. Okay, so that's the definition of urban sprawl and all other definitions we need. Is a discontinuous, haphazard, uncontrolled, unplanned, poorly planned urban development characterized by low density, excessive consumption of land, automobile dependence, separation of land uses, social segregation, displeasing aesthetics. Okay, and the effects includes encroachment on public land because there's no disparity. They don't know which land belongs to government or private people. And they don't know the plan town planners have if the road is taken just beside the land they bought. They don't know if it's taken just in front of the land they bought or across the land they bought. They are just building. Okay. And the solution usually is to upgrade the place whenever they are ready, when they are tired and they are brave enough to come to government that they don't have this, they don't have that. They say, where is the place you say you are staying? Okay, when they send someone, they say, but we've not planned for people to come and stay here. You can see there is no road. Bring the road. Then we will upgrade that area for them. And usually when they are waiting for government, they are usually tired because they are not the only people that town planning is catering for. We have other people who are staying in places that are already planned, but they are organic. They just came up on their own. So they always have the problem of government's own time to come and upgrade them. So there came the initiative of Betterment. Betterment is the when the citizen is levied some amount of money to upgrade his environment with the infrastructure they need to live a good life as a regular person. Okay, and the importance of betterment over taxation, you say, don't they pay tax? Is that it removes the heavy weight of improving the environment of the taxes of people. If they are able to bring that level, they will get their infrastructure in good time and they won't weigh on the government taxes. Okay, the aim of the paper is to domesticate Sustainable Development Goal 11 using betterment initiative in Orile Okuta community. And my objectives are to examine the resident socioeconomic characteristics because we have to know who they are, if they can pay any levy anyway or not, their existing situation, the housing situation, if the houses are upgradable, so to speak, or we are supposed to demolish the buildings. And then to assess residents' perception of betterment, do they want it? Because there's a difference between need and want. If I go there as a town planner and I see the environmental problem, I'll believe they need a better environment. But if you ask them, they may not want it. For example, if you go to an area and you are worried that they are drinking water from the nylon bag called pure water, and you ask the people and they prefer the pure water, they don't want bottled water. So you know that they can take bottled water, but they don't want it, they prefer. Do you understand? That's the case with upgrading. So we need to find out if they want the infrastructure to be in that environment, or they prefer using generator or their own means, whatever, to survive there. The study area. This is the map of Orile Okuta in Ikorodu. Just bringing out that community alone, you can see there are enough people to have a whole settlement on its own. Okay, and then those are pictures of how the place looks like. You can see they have streets on their own. They form streets by themselves, and they are living that way. That's the only. You can see government came once, and that's the transformer everybody is using. Next slide. The road. Okay. A typical house in the area. You can see the next door neighbor looks like this one. Okay. Now for data collection, the sample frame was 55 streets on the whole Orile Okuta community. And 14 streets out of these streets was selected as a quarter of the total streets, hoping that it would be a fair representation of the total number of streets. And the streets are named in the write-up, okay? And the streets are sampled based on my training that they have deficits of infrastructure, okay? And then the analysis by simple charts and percentages. The results of the findings show that there are more female than male population. This is not to say that is why the place is a sprawling urbanization. The gender has nothing to do with it being an urban sprawl. But you can know that people are seeking housing. People's housing situation is in dire need of stability. They want a place where they can feel safe and own their own housing. And then they are mostly employed people, and just few that are unemployed, and they are aged. And they earn above the United Nations poverty level. That's $1 per day. Most of them earn more than $1 per day, which means they may be able to afford the levy. And mostly agreed that they should have the betterment levy should come. They will pay the amount fixed. Well, it's an agreement between the amount is negotiated between the government agency and themselves. And most of the buildings are in fair condition. They can still be improved. They are upgradable. And okay, above on the charts are neighborhood facilities in a typical neighborhood. There is a man called Clarence Ferry who had a theory of how a neighborhood should be in the 19th century when there was industrial revolution. So his typical design of a neighborhood has a certain type of infrastructure that we should expect to be in any regular neighborhood. So those infrastructures that should be in a neighborhood is what is up on the charts, and then the street sample area are on the other side, and then those that don't have it, there it will be blank. Those that have it is star. Okay, so the street that has the highest star, that's the deficit of infrastructure, is Cemetery Street. That's with 26 deficit of infrastructure. So it's worse. Those pictures that you saw is even worse than in that street, more than you can imagine. Okay, so a typical street on that street is looking like that road I showed you, and the buildings are looking like that building I showed you, and all the problems that we saw. Okay, and so with that, we'll try and start our upgrade from that cemetery street, and then continue in that way so that our idea or the solution can be sustainable. Okay, so recommendation includes the betterment strategy and betterment levy contribution, which will involve the stakeholders' participation. So we'll have a meeting of everybody concerned in that environment. And apart from the negotiation of the levy, we'll also agree on every other thing to better the environment. And then, of course, we are updating the environment to achieve. And the place when, so the difference between suburban development and a sprawl is that the suburban development is a planned environment. They are both on the outskirts of any city or on the fringe, but one is planned, the other is not planned. This place is not planned. That's why it's a sprawling environment. There's nothing wrong with staying outside a big city. Okay, so we'll turn it into, at the end of the day, if our plan works, to turn into a suburban development. Now we are also considering the smart concept growth in order to ensure that the place remains, after we upgraded it, that way even in 100 years to come. Okay, with this smart growth, we'll make sure that they don't expand beyond that map that they have. If they want to expand, they should go and have another place, they call it another name and start their own. Okay, and then we'll ensure that we minimize the amount of vehicles coming in. We should encourage pedestrian movement. And so all their infrastructure should be within their reach so that they don't need to take a vehicle to go and fetch water or do anything. Okay, so minimize the sprawl, maximize efficiency of the environment, and improve cycling or pedestrian friendly infrastructure. So we'll talk to the people on this idea, just like we are saying now, and see how they will like it. And then the stakeholders too will come and tell us their experiences and what they feel about our own solution that we brought to them. Okay, so they are also supposed to have a formal plan. Most of them don't have formal certificate of occupancy. There's not much difference between birth certificate and certificate of occupancy. If you give birth to your child, it's yours, even if you don't register the child at local government. But it's just good to have a formal registration that, okay, you and your partner gave birth to this baby, and that is the name you named the child, for formal knowledge of that environment, that you have an addition to that population. Same with certificate of occupancy. It's just good for you to go there and say, okay, this size of land belongs to you. You bought it on so time, and then government will acknowledge that, okay, Mr. So, this is your land. So because we always have problems with COO in Nigeria. Okay, and then we are hoping that the implementation of this we will find sustainable development in that environment. And by 2030, we will also in Lagos State and in Nigeria be able to achieve sustainable development. In conclusion, we have explored domestication of sustainable development goal, okay, through these betterments. And we have step by step examined the socioeconomic lifestyle, existing condition of the residents, perception of their housing environment, effect of the sprawl on them, and through this our environmental inventory that we did. Okay, so we now know what their problems are with our inventory. we can see the pictures I took during the inventory, and then we know our own possible solutions based on our training and the concepts available to solve such problems in these 15 sample streets. Okay, so the other areas of further studies can be self-help city resident safety or effects of urban sprawl transportation, because even upgrading the area does not guarantee that all of them are 100% safe. It does not guarantee that they are 100% safe. So they may need things like vigilantes and any other means they know, or apart from police posts being present in the environment. So the precise approach to SDG 11 and the eradication of all these environmental defects in study area is a community participation, as we know it, and then the betterment contribution. Those are the key solution that I can say we have there. And then with that, we can foster this suburban development of the field. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Believe we can clear.
Okay, thank you, Taplana Ololoye. So let's start with this question on the chat already. It's from Francine. It says, for the second presenter, your graphics are great. Again, this is the question. How many people move to the communities that you are researching? Your work ties in with the first presentation nicely. Perhaps you will do a joint paper. There is a correlation between housing, population, and informal sector of employment. How can the government improve their lives? That is your question.
Should I answer? Okay.
Yes.
Government intervention is what I just spoke about. Is this betterment level? If you want the place to get upgraded fast enough, like in a few years to come, if we have that betterment level, we won't be taking our pockets into the major tax of Lagos, and they will have everything they want. Anything that they want, if they're ready to bring the betterment level.
Okay, thank you. Does any other person have questions there? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and my name is Stella. I'm the second year PhD student at Norway. And I just had two questions. And I really enjoyed the presentation, and I also like to put pictures. That's something that I saw here. So it gives me like a real-time view of what's going on there. I think my very first question is, what's sustainable development? How do you conceive of that term? How do you define it? Because, and because I think of sustainability quite different. And I think you touched a bit on it. For me, I feel like you can never achieve sustainability, or sustainability cannot be achieved if people are not involved. It has to be, because even if you go there to do something for people and they are not involved in that thing that you do, it's just difficult for it to be sustainable. So I think that's like my first question, like how do you conceive of sustainability? And then I'm also very interested in infrastructure. My work is big on infrastructure. And you put out this model that you used from this person who I guess is exactly, I don't but that person who I guess is a white man from the West. And I don't have a problem, maybe not a problem, but a problem with that. Because I think that trying to solve African issues through the Western framework might not be the best for us as Africans. And so when you call what you tag as infrastructure there based on that Western framework might not be infrastructure for them. Yeah. So I think my question is, what's infrastructure for them and to them? Understanding that I think helps us push the African epistemology further. In what we're trying to do, because that's what I'm trying to do with my work. Maybe not stopping, because knowledge is broad, but still trying to bank on our African knowledge, right? What do they define as infrastructures? You go to these communities, and just because they don't have tag road, maybe having tag road is pretty good, but just because they don't have tag road doesn't mean they don't have the road, or they don't in some ways form infrastructures for themselves. And I think this also goes back to doing the bottom up approach instead of top down approach, where you're like, oh, we're the government, and that was my sort of comment or question. Like, you're the government, you're saying, oh, these people need this thing. But it's a different thing if you go from the bottom up to the bottom up approach, where you say, oh, what do they say they need? And how do you provide what they say they need? Because when you then provide what they need and not what you think they need, it's easier for them to maintain that thing that they say they need. So I think in so many ways that's sort of helps like conversation.
Am I expected to
Yes, you had to answer her question if you understood what she said.
Thank you. I didn't catch that. Well, I already said it before that there's a difference between needs and wants, and we have to harmonize that need and wants as a planning process. There's a difference between you as a town planner who have a training to solve environmental problems. When you go to that site, the problems that you see based on your training and what the people want. It is because of this that we usually ask the people if they want that betterment, like we explain what it is, and if they want those infrastructure, and they agree that they want them. Okay, so the levy is negotiated, the number of infrastructure is negotiated. The what do you call it? But Clarence Perry is a 19th century concept who have something of neighborhood unit. And the neighborhood unit is to bring closeness. It's not a concept that separates people. It's a concept that brings people together because we only have one primary school in that community. And if all the children go to that primary school, even if they travel abroad, they can't forget that them and this other guy went to the same primary school. So they will always be close because all of them played together at the same time. So that childhood memory will bring closeness to them. And most times the type of building in that environment is usually similar. So they have similar backgrounds, similar training, they are usually very close. So if they agree on the infrastructure that they want, or the other house, they will get it if they let it. And colonization, we don't really know which one is the white man's theory anymore. Because all of us are eating the same food now. All of us are studying in English. I passed I passed English more than my local language. I think I had a C or A. I had a C in my own local. So you can't really say it's flawed now. Really, you can't even say whether the colonial. But we didn't have any problem with our colonial. We didn't fight anyone before we came. We just had it, and we had independence. I don't think we should have any strong feelings. The extent that we will see a solution and we will definitely purposely done it. But notwithstanding, regarding sustainability, I said it too that we should have people's intervention. We can't even do it without because it isn't government that are bringing the tax to the people paying the betterment level. Okay, and we have gone on to start explaining what sustainable development means. But by the way you were talking, I know you already know the meaning. And the 11 sustainable development aims at cities inclusive. That's 11 that I'm talking about: safe, resilient, and sustainability. So we want it to be safe, want it to be inclusive, which is what Clarence Perry in 19th century, before we even had it during the short inclusive, said in his own concept of neighborhood units. That all of us should be close so that we can help each other out within a neighborhood. So children growing up together, living together. That was nice.
Okay. Oh, thank you, ma'am. My question is, How did you develop or obtain the variables you used in your study? And I want to suggest that you use severity index to help you ascertain how severe the situation is based on the variables you used. So my question now, based on this, is how did you develop or obtain the variables you used for your study?
Clarence Perry concepts. There's a man called Clarence Perry who developed a concept in the 19th century. During the 19th century, we had an industrial revolution. See, Baroque era had we had a lot of decorations around trees, beautiful gardens, and everything. But people were still becoming broke, and there was still poverty. In fact, swallow during the 18th century and towards the end. And they noticed that the reason why this swallow is continuing, despite the beauty around, is because they were being taxed. And the central shrine was destroyed during the Medieval era for churches and mosques. So the Christianity introduced this light thing. And then the machine age came. The work that 10 people can do, and one machine can do it. So
sorry, excuse me, please. Sorry. So you're going a bit far. You said you used a model developed from 19th century. So how did you tweak it to speak to the Nigerian concept or the Nigerian experience? You understand? Because I understood what the other lady was talking about. You can't collect something from the West and then you just apply it to your own local environment. There's a way you need to change it. Maybe you modify it a bit so that it will suit your own local environment.
I said,
you understand?
That's what I said. Domesticated SG. That Clarence Perry didn't say we should put betterment. He designed the typical neighborhood and the things that should be, the facilities or infrastructure that should be in the typical neighborhood. He didn't say how we will achieve it. Now, we have brought in the betterment level. People are already saying there is an organic environment. They're already living there without any plan, and they don't have all this infrastructure. And we've asked, they said they agree that they want that those infrastructure in Clarence Perry's design. They want it to look like Clarence Perry's neighborhood units. Okay? So if we wait for government, we will wait for a while before they will come to us. But if they want it really quickly and to be done by government, they can pay a little levy and then the thing will happen. So that's levy paying and the betterment initiative. It's domestic, it's our own thing. It's the Nigerian thing, not and it has been adopted into the profession as a concept of.
Okay.
Slots.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma. Thank you, town planner, lawyer. So let's move to the next presenter. Samuel Omanchi. Your title is Urbanization and Traditional Livelihoods in Asaba Delta State. Is he there?
No, he's not here.
Okay, let's just go to Pierre Wenzel. In concrete, Dakar, house temporalities and the future of the city.
Do not forget that we have until 2:15 till the end of this session.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much.
So let's go to Pierre. Is he there?
Yeah, he's here.
Okay. You can just take the floor.
So just 1 second. So I will introduce myself. I'm Pierre Vincent. I'm from the University of Vienna, and I'm a doctoral student in anthropology. So I first wanted to thank you for hosting this panel about African cities and built environment in transition. I entitled my presentation today, In Concrete Dakar, House Temporalities and the Future of the City. And I will try to develop an exploration of middle class and upper class private houses in a fast changing city, interrogating their temporalities from the perspective of dwellers, through stories of houses told by second-generation inhabitants. The first slide, please. Yeah, exactly. And through also archival work. The picture that you can see here on the screen in the background is from 2005 and shows the evolution of Airform, which is also called Bubble House, and it's located in the district of Point-E. And as you can see, it has already been in 2005 swallowed up by house extensions. Before discussing further the topic of today, I would like to give some elements of contextualization about Dakar. It was inhabited since the 15th century by the Lepi people, and it was then funded as a city by the French colonial power in 1857 and became the capital city of West African French territory in 1902 and stayed the capital city of Senegal in 1960. The two images that you can see here on the screen are aerial photos showing the rapid urban sprawl of the capital city, from the 50s to nowadays. In the 50s, as you can see on the left, only the south of the peninsula was mostly constructed, and you can see in the north different airports as well. And also in the north were located traditional labor villages, fields, and also baobab forests. And you see nowadays the entire peninsula on the other side. I hope you can see well. The full peninsula is built, and it is considered that approximately 90% of the city is built with concrete in the car. Also, for the population growth, for you to have an idea, in 1955 there were 300,000 inhabitants in Dakar. Nowadays, it's approximately 3.8 million. And for this presentation, and now we get actually to the topic of today, I will focus my presentation on two different districts of Dakar, Point-E in the south and Parcelles-Vassili in the north, as you can see circled on the map. And these two districts have different economic realities, I would say, and also are coming from different periods of time. The first one, Point-E, is a wet pier district next to the city center in the south of the peninsula. It is also where we can find the Airform that we saw on the previous slide, and it was built around the early 50s. And the second district is a post-independence program that was started in 1974. It's called Parcelles-Vassili, and it was the result of a collaboration between the state of Senegal and the World Bank. So my broader research concern is to understand the process of concretification in Dakar, that is to say the spread of concrete in the built environment and its significance also historically, politically, economically. So I see, the concretification not only as a material process. Concrete starts and is part of the colonial history of Senegal. It was first imported by the French colonizer at the end of the 19th century, especially to build the foundation of important administrative buildings. As you can see here on the top left corners, this is the governor's palace where the foundation is done with concrete. And later it was also a material that was used to, also symbolize and impose colonial vision of modernity, as we can see on the bottom left with the example of a fully reinforced concrete building, the market of Sandaga. And for this presentation, I will take the 50s as a starting point, as the post-war period represents a specific moment regarding the concrete use in Dakar. On the one hand, the first integrated cement plant to be seen on the right side was built in 1948. And on the other hand, the first larger housing programs were promoted around the 50s as well. Concrete was then not only a material that was used for bigger public administrative architecture, but it was also really entering daily housing architecture in the periphery of the city as well. A material that still continues really to shape the built environment of Dakar. Next one, please. So focusing on house stories within this district, I aim to discuss the methodological approach of house biography as a tool to understand how stories from dwellers and their houses make visible the process of concretification in Dakar. And I ask, what does the concretification process reveal about urban temporalities, and what does it say about aspirations and future making in the city? Next slide. Following Glaser, I employed the concept of house biography as a multidimensional methodological approach to explore concretification as an urban process in Dakar, focusing on both the dweller's perspective and the historical context. A house is not only an architectural structure, but an evolving living environment, embodying, and here I quote Glaser, multiple entanglements that houses illuminate between the lives and the relations that are enacted within them, and the historically inflected social and political context in which they are situated. Otherly said, retracing the stories of the houses articulates the history of Dakar and Senegal and the history of the urban built environment, telling as a red thread the significance of concrete as an urban continuum in time and space. So methodologically, my goal is also to prove sources and standpoints to appreciate also the depth of these stories through the perspective of the inhabitants, I was saying, and also through archives. Next slide. My approach to systematically tracing this house biography took shape also very incrementally during my research. I first started to pay attention to private houses in the National Archive of Senegal when interested in the history of these air forts. Their destiny was very much intertwined both with the start of cement production in the country and the beginning of housing projects as well. Parallelly, I was also pursuing a field focus in the district of Parcelles-Assainies, so in the north. And I was interested in talking about the evolution of the district. And I was discussing with Karima, who lived really through the creation of the district. And she talked more about her family house than anything else, telling the stories of the district through the different evolution steps of her own house. And these discussions also ended to touch on her perception of the changing city and its future, as she emphasized, for example, that, and I quote her, almost every family from my youth moved away and people took advantage of the land to build flats and rent them. So through these stories, I aim to highlight the permanence and the changes of Dakar, as I was telling you. And this approach allows for a more fluid and quotidian as well understanding of transitions and place, both concrete and inconcrete, both tangible and intangible, so to say. I argue that change and concretification occur through mundane and unspectacular practices through the act of dwelling and everyday life. So in the next slide, I would like to explore two of these house biographies. One is the remaining air form in Point E, and the second one is the story of HLM house in Parcelles-Assainies, the house of Karim. So the first house is the house of Adama. Adama grew up in Point E, one of the chicest districts in Dakar back in the 60s, according to his words. Its proximity to the city center and amenities such as markets, university, and the hospital made it highly desirable. Adama describes Point E in the 60s as a peaceful neighborhood filled with colonial villas inspired by French provincial style, surrounded by low walls and bougainvillea. The air forms were planned and constructed in the 50s, as I was telling you, after a concept developed by Wallace Neff, an American architect. And the construction technique involved spraying concrete over an inflated giant balloon with the structure reinforced with rebars, as we can see here on the left. A letter exchanged from August 1951 to January 1952 between Monsieur Gilles, principal engineer, and Monsieur Lantenois, general director for civil engineering in French West Africa, details the construction process, and you have an example of a document. And here, this letter is describing some issues they had during the implementation with the concrete mills and also with the inflated balloon. Next slide. Attached to this correspondence were floor plans and sectional drawings that you can see on the left, revealing that most airforms in Point E consisted of a living room, 2 bedrooms, and a small bathroom, and the toilets and the kitchen were outside in the garden. When Adama inherited the house, he decided to transform it and add a wing to it. But he also wanted to keep the airform. He explained to me, and I quote him, "This bubble house inspires me. We need to keep them, and I hope I can show something to my neighbors so that they may do the same." This modern extension that he added contrasts sharply with the airport, which kept its flair also from the 50s. And for example, he was also showing me inside the little beige tiles that he really wanted to actually keep also within the house, telling me also, you know, that the small details also belong to the house history and the house value. Next slide, please. The second house is the house of Karima in Parcel in the city north. And this district has been less researched and documented as Quantum. So it was also a bit more challenging for me to find documents as well. I needed to go to the SNHLM, which is the semi-public real estate development. Then what did I say? Semi-public real estate developers, sorry, who have also an archive. Yes, and this district is also post-independence. As I was telling you, in 1974, the Caliph of the Lion Sufi Brotherhood gave a huge piece of land to the state of Senegal in the north of the peninsula as a contribution to resolve also the massive rural migration. And the state developed 12,000 plots of construction divided into 26 units that form the turtle. You can see the map on the left. And the SNHLM was in charge of implementation of this project and built also a full city like district, which is called Cité HLM Grand Médine. And that is circled on the map. And Karima lives there. In the SNHLM offices, a photograph of the early 80s shows also the construction phase with small houses aligned and concrete blocks piled in the sand. This is the photo you can see on the right. That's what that is. The floor plan was very simple and also very easy to modify, and that was done on purpose. Initially, there were few modifications to Karima's house, sorry. But in 2004, Karima's family began to making changes, adding a first floor between 2004 and 2007, and later a second floor between 2010 and 2014. During the visit, Karima pointed out also 2 reinforced concrete pillars on the ground floor that support the additional stories, noting that the foundation, the original foundation, would not be solid enough otherwise. Still, her parents really wanted to keep the original house, believing that the quality of concrete and cement was good enough and that preserving also the initial walls in the ground floor was important to maintain a connection to the past. On the left, you have an example of such an extension that is circle. Yeah, so the original the ground floor, and you have
Hello.
Yes.
You have less than 2 minutes left.
Okay, I will try to wrap up quickly. Yeah,
Okay.
so you got a little bit about the house stories. Next slide, please. Both the stories are family property, giving intimate also insights in the process of urban development and concretification, as well as densification and verticalization. The house biographies reveal that Dakar tells its palimpsest through the words of its inhabitants. Looking at the evolution at the floor plans, one can also note that the houses evolved from houses corresponding to European nuclear family standards to the reality also of the extended Senegalese family. And in this regard, I think these houses are evolution transitions, are also looking at memories and traces of liberation of imposed colonial visions of modernity. Concrete is also embedded in historical capitalist time, the temporality of accumulation, but also the construction of temporality with its periods of progress, breaks, and slowdowns, and with its immediate temporality of everyday life. And capturing these entangled rhythms, concretification must be understood as a fluid process that continuously forms and reforms. In these two stories of concrete construction, concrete serves as a repository of both national histories and mundane family histories, of colonialism and post-colonialism, of aspiration from the past and from the present, and also following Abdul Simon and the city yet to come, stories of people who constantly make the city, reconfiguring housing in response to changing social, economic, and political conditions. And I will stop here. The last slide, this was kind of an opening for the discussion because both discussions with Karima and Adama also ended with this remark that all the surrounding houses that they knew from their childhood are also disappearing because people are selling them to build, 8 floors and selling them to urban development, real estate developers. And so I wanted to talk about, this dissonant times as well between multi-generational family houses and this real estate that are very rapacious also with the land and with the development of the urban built environment. Yes, this was kind of the opening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So questions, if you have any question, this is your time.
Yeah, I think the other questions. Okay, someone wants to ask.
Okay, there are no questions for him.
Someone.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, third presenter, yes, I've seen a question here. So the comment here says it shows the precise differences between how the French and the British saw how to build and plan their colonies. This is just like an observation.
Yeah, someone has a question.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. This is kind of a discipline question. So you said you were a PhD student in mental health, and it sounds like it's very much like urban studies. So I'm just curious about why in anthropology are we studying that, like biography of countries or whatever. I mean, it's sort of like curiosity. But the second question is more about the concrete. Like, so what is your reading of the concrete as material? You said it has like a lot of aspects of it, and then maybe you said it and I was just
Should I answer?
Yes.
It's funny, I actually come from urban studies. I did my master's in urban studies and switched to anthropology also doing more. I think where anthropology comes in is also, here I didn't really develop this aspect of house biographies. It's what I call house visit interviews. Meaning, when I was visiting, for example, the South Carolina, we did the interview by visiting the house. So, and maybe also this very small scale approach is very, maybe traditional way. I think Glazer, the article I was mentioning, wrote an article about house biographies as the smallest urban scale. The house at the smallest urban scale. Yeah, so maybe that would be first. And for the concrete, I think the challenging, but I'm still struggling as well as is that concrete is so versatile when it comes to certain values. It's a global material, and I feel like in any region of the world now, concrete and cement is being used, and in each region of the world, some kind of values are different. But I would still say that nowadays, concrete is mostly a capitalist material. It's an extracted, it's based on extraction, it's based on very industrial value chains. And also accumulation, as you can see, also very directly making new floors or building the eight-story building is acknowledged. So in all different kinds of stories or something like that which then ties to that would be the difference.
Is that another question?
Okay. Yes, there's someone else.
Yes, it's more of a comment than the question. I was curious about where it was coming from, the title of the paper and his presentation, and him saying he's an anthropologist. So I quickly went through and saw that that's the study of human beings. So it may be working hand. In the human aspect, I believe I didn't catch the problem of the environment we are studying quite slow, but I believe from what I caught that maybe they're having housing problem or congestion problem. Because it's when people have congestion problem, when many people are at the particular space that they go for. Because it's actually a concept by Johannes here, who is a Frenchman, who says instead of us expanding horizontally, why don't we go vertical so that we take more people in the same space? So I guess that's why they're bringing the bubble house down to have skyscrapers so that more people can stay in that area. I think we need to educate the people in that environment well and carry them along. That's the only way they can see what you're doing in skyscrapers as a development instead of them being destroyed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
One more person.
Yes, one more. It's me.
Better present and then you carry on.
Yes. So my question, you mentioned Atlantic Simone. That was both of my interest because and then I see your title has a future of cities, right? So I was wondering how it is. I didn't understand a lot about how we intend to this control. So I want to be very well about that. So how are you thinking through synergy?
Yeah. I think I try to work with Latino in a very broad sense with his approach to see the daily practices of urban dwellers rather than, maybe the bigger master plan of the city. Because in the end, I think the very interesting approach of Latino is working on this for now 20 or 30 years now. So the thing that is really inspiring for me is to emphasize on this daily practice, and looking at what actually people on a daily basis to make and change the city. And yeah, so I would answer simply like this. And in one part of maybe I could also mobilize the concept of what infrastructure for this. In the sense that in the end, these houses are also, the materialization of people's network. And in the end, these houses are the materialization of how people are actually kind of creating local networks in order to make this happen. And in order to let the city grow from actually, I mean, it's very time to wet.
So I was thinking line of they actually be like original houses and now they become like eight-story buildings. I mean that gives that does some of the infrastructure we're talking about now and also about where to get to. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I need to just go ahead with my presentation.
Yes, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, my name is Onyinyechi Gift Osai, and I'm here to present my paper on a holistic index-based framework for assessing housing conditions and quality of life, application to Enugu urban Nigeria. So with the continuous increase in the rate of urbanization in African cities, which has presented significant challenges for housing availability and overall quality of life of urban dwellers. We also have seen that the percentage of Africans living in urban areas was approximately 36% in 2010 and is expected to rise to 30 and 50% by the years 2030 and 2050 respectively. So housing is considered a basic necessity that everyone has right to and directly speaks to sustainable development goals, particularly goal 11, which aims to provide quality, affordable housing for all by 2030. Quality of life refers to the extent to
Can you move the
important
slide?
life possibilities.
Hello,
Hello?
can you move your slide?
Yes, I can move it. Can you see it?
Yes, yes, but it's still on page 1.
Yes, I'm still on page 1 actually. So, quality of life refers to the extent to which an individual enjoys important possibilities. So, including improved standard of living and general welfare, as well as the feeling of being safe and satisfied with life. Then, housing quality of life, as defined by Abidin et al. 2019, refers to the feeling of contentment one experiences when their housing needs and desires are met. So for our study, we believe that an ideal set of indicators to measure quality of life based on housing should provide information on the physical values and the satisfaction values. The physical values, which entails physical characteristics of the building or the structure and then the neighborhood attributes, which speaks to the location. Then satisfaction value entails residential satisfaction based on certain dimensions and indicators, such as health, safety, security, and social relationship. So for a gap, we found out that various studies on housing conditions and quality of life in Africa have used statistical methods such as percentages and frequencies, and also regression to analyze um, the influence of housing condition with quality of life. And these statistical analyses were used to assess um, housing and health in sub-Saharan Africa. All these analyses were based on resident satisfaction, which is more subjective, which may not provide full understanding of the quality of life of the dwellers. So, in this study, due to the lack of integrated framework for assessing housing conditions and quality of life, we decided to develop an index that will be used to address the lived realities of urban dwellers. This research seeks to bridge this lacuna by developing a holistic based framework for evaluating housing conditions and their impact on the quality of life of low income housing residents in Enugu urban Nigeria. So the objectives of this study were to identify key dimensions and indicators of housing conditions and quality of life, design a housing quality of life index by integrating both the subjective and objective measures, and three, application to residents of low income housing in Enugu urban Nigeria. So for our conceptual framework, the study utilized the housing and quality of life theory, which was developed through interdisciplinary research in the fields of urban studies, sociology, and even psychology. Scholars such as Marans and Roger Maslow Gaster have contributed significantly to this theory. So while the theory used a whole lot of dimensions and indicators, we're able to modify it to suit our environment, and we're able to segregate it into objective measures and then the subjective measures. So for the dimensions, we're able to pick dimensions that will give us the conditions of the physical value, and then dimensions that will also give us an interface of the perceptual or satisfaction value. When after the whole systematic review we did, we're able to develop up to dimensions and up to 41 indicators. We'll talk about that later. So for the physical value, we're able to use level of severity to ascertain how severe the condition
excuse
of
me,
the
ma.
house is.
Well done, ma. So we only have
Yes.
3 minutes to the end of the session, ma.
Okay, I'll be fast.
Thank you so much, ma.
So thank you very much. That part is a level of satisfaction, and then it boils down to quality of life. So what we are trying to do is to show you how housing condition influences quality of life using all these dimension indicators. So in the variables. So, and the next thing we had to do was to design the housing quality of life, or where we had to determine the dimension indices and give values to the minimum and maximum value. There you have the dimension indices. So if you know about what's it called, Human Development Index is just the same. We just used the idea, but then we modified it to suit our work. Then we now did a geometric mean of both the physical value and the life satisfaction value, which will now actually give us the housing quality of life index for any particular house. So how we were able to apply this was we distributed 400 questionnaires to residents in low-income housing. The one we picked was this mixed family housing, what we normally call face me, I face you housing. That's what we use to validate our index. And at the end of the day, we found out that their quality of life, the housing quality of life is 0.492, which according to our index cutoff here falls under the low housing quality of life. So it means that the quality of life is low based on our index. So I think we are done. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you, Chair, for your presentation. Can you hear us?
Okay. Yes, I can.
We are not able to see your slides, but it was a good
Oh,
presentation.
really?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I shared it, and sorry about that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Questions or comments?
Yes, if you have any comments, questions, we are open.
But the time is up.
Okay.
No.
It's nice to meet you. Thank you for coming to our session. All right. Have a nice day. Oh, my.
Yeah.